In today's video, I want to talk about 4 stars of Wriothesley and Venti's banner in Phase 2 of 4.1. I will also be making another video, most likely tomorrow, that will be about if you should pull on Wriothesley or Venti's banner, depending on your needs. And I know I've been saying Wriothesley in 2 of my videos, but apparently I was wrong, so as of right now, it's Wriothesley or Wriothesley. Now, let's talk about the topic of today's video, which is the 4 stars in Phase 2 of 4.1. I was super excited to talk about the ones in Phase 1, but not so much right now, and if you're a new player, you may not know all or any of these characters, and you might think they will be useful. But to be honest, not so much. First off, we have Chongyun. Now, this is not a Chongyun slander, as I'm sure some people love the Popsicle Boy, maybe because of him being related to Shenhe. But jokes aside, we have to consider that is he a good 4-star overall, and does he work well with the 5 stars of the banner that he's on? And the short answer to that is simply no. And no matter how you look at it, because his skill gives cryo infusion to your normal attacks, and you might be thinking, well, that could work with maybe Venti or Wriothesley. But in reality, it only works with polearm, claymore, and sword users, and has no effect to bow users, which in this case is Venti, and Catalyst user in the form of Wriothesley. And even most cryo users have their own type of cryo application, so they don't really benefit from Chongyun, or at least I can't think of anyone besides maybe Rosaria that can benefit from it, but even she is better off with other characters accompanying her. On the other hand, that ability has little to no use for most team comps that can even use it properly, because it will interfere with their reactions when they don't need cryo infusions. Similar to C6 of Bennett, and why most people refuse to C6 him and keep him at C5. But imagine if Bennett, even at C0, forced you to have pyro infusion when you're in the area of his burst, then his flexibility and team comps would have become really limited. But in Chongyun's case, it's a skill with an area of effect. And he's not exceptional or amazing in any teams, although his burst can dish out some decent amount of damage and can buff the attack speed of your melee characters. He isn't the best one out of the 4 stars at what he does as a cryo character either. He lacks personal damage unless you have him at C6, but even then he's not that special, and I doubt as a new player you can get him to C6 that easily, especially because how the pity works for 4 stars. And if you do, you will most likely want him as a burst support and not a main DPS, so overall Chongyun is not a horrible unit, but he's in a weird spot of just being okay when compared to all 3 4-star characters of Phase 1 banner, so I wouldn't really recommend investing on him unless you really enjoy his playstyle and what he brings to the table. And then, for the second one, Thoma. I know he looks pretty cool, but he's almost never the best in slot shielder for any team comps, since the shield from his skill isn't as good and has a long cooldown, and once again the same issue of not synergizing well with the 5 stars of the banner that he's on, and that's an important factor, because whether you like it or not, you will probably get a copy of these 3 characters in your pulling sessions, and outside of Burgeon, you can't really say that Thoma is a great option to bring, and mostly his shield from his burst can be useful, and not his skill, because of long cooldown and it being lackluster as I said. Plus, he often steals reactions in other teams from mainly pyro characters because his shield also sends pyro attack waves to enemies. So for example, if you're attacking with a character like Yoimiya or Hu Tao, his attack will be the one that will cause the pyro related reactions to trigger, which is equal to much lower damage since he will most likely have so much HP built in his artifacts and he can't really perform as a damage dealer. Instead, he can be a support shield character, and even if you try to build him as a DPS, his potential is lower than average, because then his entire purpose of his kit, which is shield support, will be utterly useless. Unless, as I said before, you want him in a Burgeon team, but you won't be using Wriothesley or Venti with him in the end, because he will be used with other Dendro and Pyro characters in that situation. And lastly, Dori. I may sound like a broken record, but she's not gonna synergize well with Venti or Wriothesley. And her elemental burst is not flexible and is difficult to get value from. Because of its internal cooldown, you can't really proc that many reactions, even if you thought otherwise based on its description. Her attack animations are slow due to her being a claymore user and has low personal damage potential, and even as a support she doesn't bring anything mind-blowing or game-changing in any sort of way. Her healing is a single target and a slow one at that, and she has a hard time generating energy for her high cost burst, which is arguably the best part of her kit, so you have to keep her energy recharge up either with her artifacts or using weapons like Sacrificial or Favonius Greatswords to make it up for her. And to be honest, we already have so many better healers even as 4-star units, so bringing her for most team comps isn't really that beneficial. Her elemental skill is barely useful outside of aggravate teams and doesn't really generate that much energy to begin with. And lastly, maybe if she wasn't a Claymore user and had a better kit and skill, she would have had more utility on her own, but overall I just don't see her being a good choice for either healing or support with the current roster of characters in the game. In conclusion, if you plan on wishing on these banners, you have to keep the 4 stars in mind. Also check my last videos for Hu Tao and Neuvillette banner, and I even talked about the amazing 4 stars on their banner, so you might reconsider which phase of 4.1 is worth more depending on which characters you like more and what stage of the game you're currently at. Whether you're a beginner or a veteran, this might be a different story for you guys. And for more information on whether you should choose Venti or Wriothesley, consider subscribing and stay tuned for the video tomorrow to help you decide which one is the best one for you, or maybe even wait for future banners. Now don't forget to like and comment your opinions on the 4 stars so that the algorithm notices my channel, and I will highly appreciate it. Have a good day or night, and peace.